what America was and what it can become. This is Liberty Town Hall.
There's Glenn Wilson. I'm Greg Marshall. Welcome aboard to Liberty Town Hall. Today's show is going to be really interesting because we've got a lot of things happening that's going to be impressive today. And I mean, simply put, how would you be impressed with a piece of paper? Or depressed with a piece of paper at the same time? Glenn, you'll see what we mean in a couple of minutes here as I went over earlier today the list, and it's just a partial list of all the taxes in this country.
Right.
And I mean to tell you, it's a massive list, and it's not totally comprehensive, but there is a list like you wouldn't believe. Or maybe you would. You're in the telecom business, Glenn, as a trade, so you of all people might understand what I'm talking about.
I wasn't able to be here when you were actually going through the list and whatnot, but I don't even think you got it all.
No, I didn't. It was a very partial list.
So I'm sitting here watching, and I'm going, well, let me tell you the embedded taxes that you don't see. You just see the direct line taxes that show up on somebody's bill. You're doing sales tax, so you see it. Well, look what goes into the price of gas at the pump. And so we don't really see the tax at the pump because it's just here's what it is. But when you actually look at it, a good chunk of that gas cost is tax. But look even deeper. Every employee that a company employs, there's tax burdens on top of the wages that the employer has to pay.
Yeah, there is.
And for some reason, for the love of me, I cannot figure out why people don't understand basically two common sense things, at least common sense to me, is that employers do not pay the tax. Their customers do.
Yeah.
Okay, so every time we say up the rate on the employers, okay, keep taxing the companies, tax them. Well, it comes down to simple mathematics. Where does the money actually come from? The person that buys and sells products, right? So, how do we get people to understand that? And then also, how do we get people to understand that government jobs that are paid for with taxes they're nothing but a tax burden. Every employee from the government side of things is nothing more than a tax. So when they say, well, we just added 100,000 new jobs at the federal government, no, they just put $100,000 or 100,000 new long-term burdens and commitments on the taxpayers. And it just keeps building up and building up and building up. So, when we sit here and watch what you go through on the list, it'll be interesting to see what people think about this whole list of taxes, Greg.
Like Glenn said, it's not near all of them. It's not comprehensive, but it's a big list of stuff that we pay in a general sense throughout the country. Stand by. There's more to talk about, and we'll continue. Appreciate you watching today's Liberty Town Hall. You ever give taxes a lot of thought? Now that's a burden, and here I am bringing it up, and it's not even April 15th. Why is he bringing up taxes? I don't blame you asking. Let me throw something by you for a second, though. I thought it'd be interesting just to reflect on a non-April 15th time so we can think about it a little more clearly, because let's face it, when April 15th comes, we all have anger, frustration, angst. I know very few people that smile real big and say, boy, I'm glad to pay a bunch of taxes. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. It's not a pleasant thing, even if you agree with it and wish we did more. There are a few people that say, oh, I wish we did more, and that's a whole other argument for another day. I don't wish we did more because it just hurts, and I know it always comes back to haunt me. I mean, think about it. You tax a business. That's one of the big pushes right now. Tax the big corporations. We start taxing big corporations. Do you really believe that the tax dollars change at all? Let me tell you what happens. You and I start paying those taxes. Why? Because companies charge us for their taxes and the cost of their goods and services. Think about this through logically. Companies charge us every expense they have. We pay for their employees in the cost of our goods and services we buy from them. We pay for their electric bills. We pay their property taxes. We pay maintenance on their trucks if they have them. We pay for their health insurance for their people. Every expense they have, whether it be infrastructure, actual creation of a product, whatever it is, you and I pay for it in the cost of our goods and services. If we didn't, they would go into the red and they would go out of business. Any business is like that, period. Even so much as buying off a lemonade stand. If they charge me 5 cents for a glass of lemonade and it cost them 10 with everything they put together, that little kid's going to go out of business pretty quick because they're going to run out of the $3 mom gave them to get the thing started with. And it goes up beyond there. It's simple economics. You and I pay all taxes, whether it's on businesses or rich folks, as some people are trying to say, those, as President Obama would say, over $250,000 in income who are well-to-do and deserve to pay more taxes. Whoever it is, you and I are paying for it. Every single person in the country pays all the taxes. They're just hidden. They're hidden in ways that we can't see them all. I've said before, and I'll say it again, businesses would do very well if they had somebody in their company work on a project and come in and say, you know, I think I'm going to start putting on our product on the side of the box or on the side of the wall where you pick up the service or what have you, a list of all the taxes this business pays to the best of our knowledge. Trust me, they'd never get them all because too many things are embedded in the prices of even the raw goods they buy to put their material together. But if they put a list down of every tax that they know they pay and let you know that part of the reason that your bill is the price it is because of this, tell me that wouldn't make an impact. I wish every business would do that. I think it would be important. We should do that on our website at libertytownhall.com. I hope you check our site out, by the way, sometime because it's got some good stuff on it. But those are the kind of things that we're going to be really looking at, is how much taxes somebody pays. Because it's a lot more than just paying income tax. There's a lot of people that walk around believing they don't even pay taxes. Oh, I don't pay taxes. I'll go over that for you in a little while here. There's a lot of new taxes that have just come out since this president came in office. Let me give you some examples real quick as I put on the Greg Marshall eternal glasses of the aged and tell you, since taking office, President Obama has had or signed into law 21 new or higher taxes. Let me go over some with you. A 150% increase in the federal excise tax on tobacco. Several things about Obamacare, and before you start saying it's the Affordable Care Act, President Obama during the debates said that he liked the name Obamacare. So I feel pretty confident that it's okay to say Obamacare now. Here's another one, Obamacare individual mandate excise tax. You can look these up yourself, and I encourage you to do so you can become learned on these things and realize that it's just not some talk show host telling you stuff on television. Here's another one, the Obamacare employer mandate tax, the Obamacare surtax on investment income, Obamacare excise tax on comprehensive health insurance plans, the Obamacare hike in the Medicare payroll tax. How about the Obamacare medicine cabinet tax? Trust me, it's there. Go check it out. Obamacare HSA withdrawal tax hike, the Obamacare flexible spending account cap, also called the special needs kids tax. Also the Obamacare tax on medical devices manufacturers, the Obama haircut for, as they call it, for medical itemized deductions from 7.5% to 10%, Obamacare tax on indoor tanning services, the Obamacare elimination of tax deductions for employers, provided retirement drug coverage in cooperation with Medicare Part D, Obamacare Blue Cross Blue Shield tax hike, Obamacare excise tax on charitable hospitals, Obamacare tax on innovator drug companies, Obamacare tax on health insurers, Obamacare $500,000 annual executive compensation limit for health insurance executives, Obamacare employer reporting of insurance on W-2s, Obamacare black liquor tax hike, and Obamacare codification of the economic substance doctrine. You can look those all up yourself. I think you'd find it interesting reading. Some of that stuff you're like, what in the world kind of title is that? Go find out for yourself. There's a lot to talk about here, and I wanted to share at least a little bit with you. Now, I've got to take a break shortly, but when I come back, I wanted to let you know that that's not the only taxes you pay. There's a lot more out there. Wait till you hear the list, and it's just a partial one, of the taxes you and I in society pay. Think you don't pay taxes? You're in for a shock. You know you do? You're in for a shock as to how many more that you probably haven't even thought of. I'm Greg Marshall. Thanks for being with us today. This is Liberty Town Hall. And welcome back. Appreciate you being with us today. was talking just a little bit about the taxes that had come in during the last segment since the Obama administration has been in play. But keep in mind, just because I can name some taxes that this current president does, that doesn't mean things were fine before. Things have been a mess for a long time. When you do taxes, shouldn't it be something you can figure out in your head and just come up with? I mean, it is for all the other bills. There's the number, give it to me, that's the end of it. How would you keep up with this? Because I guess I better do a definition first of taxes. Taxes truly is anything that the government charges you for that you would prefer not to give them but have to. That's a tax, plain and simple. Now, this is just a partial list of some of the taxes that we pay today, but it is quite lengthy. Take a listen and see how many taxes you recognize. Some of these will be, most of these are in every state. There's a few that are called by different names, but you'll get the point pretty quickly. Accounts receivable tax, automobile registration tax, building permit tax, capital gains tax, cigarette tax, corporate income tax, CDL license tax, dog license tax, estate tax, federal unemployment tax, fishing license tax, fuel permit tax, gasoline federal taxes, gasoline state taxes, hunting license taxes, inheritance tax, inventory tax, IRS interest charges, which, if you think about it, that's taxes on top of taxes, and also IRS penalties, which is another tax on top of tax, liquor tax, local income tax, luxury tax, marriage license tax, Medicare tax, parking meters, that's a tax too, property tax, real estate tax, septic permit tax, service charge tax, Social Security tax, road usage taxes are paid by truckers, which, like everything else, you and I still pay for in the cost of our goods and services, sales tax, recreation vehicle tax, toll booth taxes. Yes, when you go to a bridge or a toll road and throw in whatever amount of money they're asking for, that's a tax. You're helping to pay the bridge through a direct tax right out of your pocket and don't even get a receipt for it like you do when you file something on April 15th. School taxes, state income tax, state unemployment tax. Here's where the fun begins. Telephone federal excise tax, telephone federal user service fee tax, telephone federal, state, and local surcharge, telephone minimum usage surcharge tax, telephone recurring and non-recurring tax charges, telephone state and local direct tax, telephone usage charge tax, toll bridge taxes, toll tunnel taxes, which goes along with toll booths, traffic fines, trailer registration tax, utility tax, vehicle license registration tax, vehicle sales tax, watercraft tax, and if that wasn't enough fun, well permit tax, workman's compensation, and it bears repeating, of course, the federal income tax. Thank you, IRS. That is a list and a half. But it's only some of the taxes. You pay others, especially if you live in a township or a town, village, what have you. You've got some local things that we hadn't even thought about. And there is other federal taxes based on circumstances and situations. Again, the business taxes you heard about, you and I pay for in the cost of our goods and services. And then all the individual stuff on top of it. Even if you believe that you don't pay taxes, you do. Even if you think that you totally skate by in society, no, you don't. Even if you believe that your income is so well that you're happy to be able to pay the taxes, which there's not very many people that are, you're still being cheated out of money that could go back into the system, that could go back into our economy instead of going into a rat hole. It's amazing how government becomes a rat hole issue. And the longer it does, think about it. Have you ever seen stimulus work? We've talked about it before. Stimulus has not worked. When people come back and say, well, we saved so many jobs, how do they know that? There is no way to quantify that and prove that. We're just making that up and saying, well, it had been worse if we hadn't spent it. Well, it'd have been worse if I hadn't grabbed you and threw you across the room, because maybe you would have tripped walking out on the porch. I mean, think of the silliness of statements like that. If they're right, it's going to prove out in the end, but so far it hasn't. We're not seeing major growth, but we are seeing time to end this segment. I wish there was a lot more time, but there's not. I got to take a break. We'll come back and finish off this Liberty Town Hall. Appreciate you being here and finishing it out with us today on Liberty Town Hall. That must have been a strain. It was sure a strain for me to listen to that whole list, but it's important. Why? Because people need to realize something. Have you ever read the Constitution, or the Declaration rather of Independence, forgive me, where it has the list of grievances? Most of us might know the preamble of the Constitution. A few of us have read the Declaration, but if you ever get a chance to, look up Declaration of Independence, list of grievances, and just go over the list of grievances. Glenn, have you read the list of grievances before?
Absolutely, and I have it here handy. It's in this great little book right here called, U.S. Constitution. It's got the Declaration of Independence and all the documents in it. And by the way, that's a really big book, Greg. I mean, they kept it simple for a reason so that we never run into this problem. But although we talked about, taxes and you read off the list, those are hard taxes that people see at the end of their bill. They really don't see how much tax is in that gasoline. They don't see how much tax is in the loaf of bread. And even if they could figure that out, they're not figuring out all the taxes that are put on the businesses that are made up into that loaf of bread. I mean, really, it's about 20-some% of the cost of a loaf of bread is federal taxes. Mm-hmm. You can't keep
not counting state taxes or local taxes.
Right, I'm just talking about federal taxes at this point.
Yeah.
But if you look, it's just one tax on top of another tax on top of another tax. So businesses have to raise the price of their goods. So for example, the loaf of bread goes up by that 22%. So every time we say raise the tax on a business, charge them more tax, people are, for the love of me, I just don't understand why they can't comprehend that that's the tax that they're going to pay then.
That's because generationally they've never been taught that, Glenn. Generationally they've never been taught that simple truth that you and I just discovered. And you go even, there's some places I don't even understand how they're able to make a living. I mean, take a look at the tax example you just gave, then take a look at places, for those of you watching in California, you'll appreciate what I'm saying. They just recently passed a 9.3% high-end income tax on the rich and wealthy, going all the way down to $41,000. That's rich and wealthy now. 9.3% income tax, state income tax.
Yes,
that
but don't think that doesn't affect everyone in America. One of our stockholders, one of my board members, lives in California. And the day after, he just could not believe it. He's thinking about moving out of California. He just cannot believe that they've voted to increase taxes yet again. It's just unbelievable. Why people don't understand that taxing is just going to be paid by the consumer. These governmental jobs are nothing more than tax burdens. They're not jobs in the economy. They're tax burdens in the economy. And so we just keep feeding this engine at the backs of the middle class and the poor. That's really where it's at.
Well, that's the only way they can make enough money to justify. I mean, they talk about taxing the rich. All the taxes that President Obama is proposing on the quote-unquote rich, $250,000 or more, although there are taxes that are going to affect the people who are making much less income than that. But just use that number alone, the 250,000 plus number. That's going to raise $80 billion. We have a yearly deficit added on the national debt. Get this, national debt increases to over $1 trillion a year now in new debt. And $80 billion is going to do anything on this?
20 days tops. It's $4 billion a day.
Yep, it's not going to kill anything.
Nope.
Frustrating as it can be, we're going to talk more about it another time, my friend. Thanks for watching today's Liberty Town Hall.
Being the gift of God Almighty, it is not in the power of man to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave. These may be best understood by reading and carefully studying the Institutes of the Great Lawgiver and Head of the Christian Church, which are to be found clearly written and promulgated in the New Testament. Rights of the Colonists, Samuel Adams, November 20th, 1772.